Readers Entertainment Radio presents Booklights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Booklights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. You are in for a treat, especially all of you folks out there watching Outlander and who love Scottish Highland books. You are in for a treat because today we have on author Ben Leman, and this is his debut book, and it comes out next week. So you are going to want to go and hit the pre-order button. It sounds fantastic. I can't wait for you to meet him. So I will read his bio here so you can get to know him. Ben Leman is a businessman, rancher, and fourth-generation Texan whose appetite for adventure has carried him from the remote wilderness of Alaska to elk hunts in the Mountain West and travels across the globe. He's a licensed pilot and lifelong explorer, and Ben is proud of his Scottish descent, and he spent years studying the fierce clashes between the Highland clans, research that inspired the heart of his debut novel, Between the Tynes. His pursuit of authenticity has taken him to many of the locations in Scotland that are featured in the book. Guided by a deep love of country and community, Ben has also served as a county judge and a state representative in Texas. And today, Ben and his wife live on their family ranch in Central Texas, where they're raising 4 children and a herd of dreams. And you can find out more about him on his website. I did put a link to his website right in the show notes. So feel free to go sign up for his newsletter. I remember being a debut author, and the scariest thing is, how am I going to find people to read my book? So please go sign up for his newsletter. It means the world to a new author. And without any further delay, you there, Ben?
Yes, I am.
Congratulations on your debut book. I love having debut authors on because I remember that feeling of, oh no, how am I going to find the readers? But
I feel that. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about the book, but about your show as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, why don't you tell everybody about Between the Tynes and why they should go pre-order a copy before it comes out next week?
Sure. So it's Between the Tynes is a historical fiction novel based in Scotland, 1600s, 1640s. The backdrop is, of course, at the time, is the War of Three Kingdoms is going on. However, that is not what the story is about. It's really about a journey of the main character, Aaron Lamont, and his clan that he belongs to, as they get drawn into a conflict with a neighboring clan. This conflict reveals much of what was going on clan violence at the time. As they get drawn more and more into the conflict, he eventually comes to a crossroads where he must decide about defending the family honor in the clan or start afresh over in the new world, in the colony. So it takes the reader on the journey of that evolution of thought through the battles and love and war and hope and hopelessness and all the things that go on during that time. It was such a tumultuous time. It takes the reader deep into that and really lets them experience what was going on at the time.
That sounds fantastic. When you were deciding to write this book, what really inspired you to decide, I'm doing it, I'm writing this book? Did you see something or trip over a family research? What inspired you?
Well, it was 2 parts. The first part of writing a book actually happened back in 2013 when a good friend of mine, a mentor, in fact, was dying of pancreatic cancer. And it was the last time I would see him. I went and visited, knocked on the door. His wife answered, said he was having a good day. I went in there, had a great visit. And on the way out, he fell asleep, and he came to as I walked out his bedroom door, and he yelled, "Between the Tynes." And I didn't know what he said at the time. So I turned around and went back to his bedside and said, "What did you say, John? I didn't understand you." And he said, "Between the Tynes." And I said, "I don't understand what you're talking about." And he goes, "Well, that's what you're going to call it, Ben." And he was pretty alert whenever he was talking about this. And he said, "Between the Tynes, that's what you're going to call your first book." And yeah, I was like, it was out of nowhere. I just didn't know where this came from, and then as fast as he came to consciousness, he went unconscious again, and I was like, great, John, thank you, for obligating me to writing a
Write a
book.
book.
Yeah, and so I never had another conversation with him about it, unfortunately. And so that was part one. And part two was as I tried to figure out what to write about over time. I thought about different things, but I also loved my family history. And so as I dug deep on some of that, that took me back to the American Revolution. My fifth great grandfather, James Lamont, died at the Battle of Monk's Corner there. And so I just kept digging, and it led to a broader story back over in Scotland. And then the next thing you know, it was really just a huge story that I really felt the world needed to hear that it hasn't really heard before in this way. So I was
Oh,
super excited to decide to write it.
can you tell everyone what the tines are between the tines?
Yeah, between the times. So at the time, back in that time period, taverns were named according to their physical description. So it'd be the tavern with the red door, the tavern with the blue door, or whatever. In this case, the description applies to two different things. The first one is the physical description of the tavern that the clan Lamet spent a lot of time at between the tines. It had two stag antlers, but on either side of the door to the
Uh-huh.
entrance for this
Mhm.
tavern, and that's how that tavern was described. And so that between the tines also represents the place itself is comprehensive in the sense that it was where it fed the community. A lot of the outreach happened from that community. The women that were in the role that played a very large role and heroic in many ways. One way was how they touched the community and really held it together. And so that's kind of the cornerstone of that community. And of course, red stags is what fed people well back then. They're like kind of like elk over here in the United States, of course, and that was a big food source.
Okay. All right. Well, when you decided to write this book, as you're going through and you're editing, did you have a scene that kind of became your favorite? Like, this was why I wrote this book kind of scene?
There were many scenes. So this is a very fast-paced book. It's not a history book in the sense of just, we're throwing up a bunch of history. So it's very fast-paced. It's very gripping, and I really, really tried to focus on the entertainment side, interjecting that into the historical lesson. There is a lot of history in it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
presented in a very palatable way, that's exciting and engaging. And so, as far as one particular scene, I think there are many scenes, but I couldn't narrow it down to one. I don't want to give away too much of the story to begin with, but there are many scenes that the reader would go through and really pick out and say, hey, this is just a memorable scene. I think there's one of those for everybody in this book.
Well, that kind of leads me to a lot of our listeners are readers, and they're always really interested in how you actually became an author. And it sounds like to me you've had such a varied background in your life. But did you always want to be an author, or did that nudge from your friend really, make you make a hard right turn?
Well, I've always been an avid reader. I read books just nonstop. I love reading books. So it's always been in the back of my head one day, maybe, I have always thought of that, like just kind of out there, nothing really too serious. But when my friend mentioned that, I got obviously more focused on it. And initially, I kind of considered some leadership type books because of my background in business and the
Mhm.
things I've done. I felt that would have been potentially appropriate. But as I started to think through it and conducted the research on this, what really grabbed me was when I kind of thought about the people in America today, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's been such an evolution of our way of life from the 1600s to today with respect to our freedoms and opportunities. Nobody can disagree that the world is freer today than it was in the 1640s, and there are more opportunities for people in general, which is a good thing. It's a very uniting thing. But it started somewhere. And it started with the question in my mind, what was going on wherever people were at the time that was such a struggle that they left their homeland and came to the colonies?
Right.
And I think that story is a thread that binds us all together. I think no matter what country you're from, aside from Native Americans, everybody else in America or their families from somewhere.
Somewhere. Mm-hmm.
And so there's a story in most of those countries, and maybe the time period is a little different, but there was a struggle there, a struggle,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was, running from oppression or from a lack of opportunity towards opportunity and freedoms, religious reasons. There were, obviously people were forced to come over as well, and under a struggle, a terrible situation there. And so there's a story that everybody has, and this is just one slice of that. And that's what gripped me. That's what really got me going is, this really applies to everybody at a time in our country's history where, people, it's pretty divided out there. And I think people would do well to remember where it all came from, and remember that we are more alike than we may seem at sometimes.
Right, right. Well, once you decided that you had this concept and this character, did you go join writers groups? How did you get this book all the way to published?
So that was quite a journey in and of itself. First, I did a lot of research on this topic. I started buying books that through various research and talking to different people, I found some very credible books that I purchased and read and kept digging deeper. I traveled to Scotland 2 times, and I went and visited most of the places that are mentioned in my novel. There were 7 battles there that all occurred in history. I stood at the castles. I stood on the grounds where significant events happened. I looked at the ocean front that they were looking at. I looked at the same scenes, the mountains, and just got a feel for what they woke up and saw every day.
Right.
Really drew me in to them there. So the research was a huge part of it, but more than that, the writing journey, I realized once I'd set my sight on this, I didn't want to just write this book for the first time. This is a very deep novel. I mean, it really, really has a lot of meat to it. And so I wanted to figure out my approach to being able to do it effectively. And so I did write another novel without intending on publishing it, just to iron out my process.
Yeah.
And that was a great experience. It taught me I really, really enjoyed the writing experience, and it made me very excited about writing this one. Then I did go to some seminars about publishing and how to write, improving your writing ability. I talked to some author friends as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started writing. I started writing this book, and it took about a 13-month time period, including 2 rewrites. I rewrote it twice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was lucky and I got to meet Ray Bradbury a couple times. And he used to say that of all of the arts, writing he thought was the toughest because he said you can learn to paint and look at your first painting and go, okay, I did it, but it's not ready to sell. But with writing, we all know how to write a sentence. So when you finish a book, you feel like, okay, here it is, but you're not a storyteller yet. So the idea that you had to rewrite it a couple times is amazing because that's how we hone, our storytelling, because it's more than just sentences, right?
Absolutely. I wrote it the first time, And so what was happening is as you write a story and you start, going down these various offshoots and deeper and deeper and a wider variety of ways, I was really honing in my message, the theme, the underlying
Mm-hmm.
theme of what I was trying to get across. Well, as the theme changed, I realized that my characters didn't match that theme anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things just like, as your theme gets deeper and more serious tone, and your characters need to do the same in many ways. It's hard to have levity to a large degree and then carry a serious undertone underneath it. That's very,
Right.
so I had to go back and adjust all my characters' personalities as I not only honed in on my theme, but realized how I wanted to develop the character development to occur. Throughout the
Right.
novel, they start off one way, one mindset. They're going to end up
Mm-hmm.
another way. And how do I demonstrate that evolution of thought while having some significant entertainment value to the book to keep people engaged the whole time in action? So
Right.
yeah,
And we
storytelling
all
as
want to
well.
see characters grow and change, so we have to figure out where do they need to start so that you can see that change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're right.
Well, I noticed that this one is a series, Forged in Blood series. Do you have other books planned? How many books are there going to be?
Yeah, so this is a trilogy, and Forged in Blood is the name of the trilogy. Book one is Between the Times. Book two is Behind the Mask, and I've already started it, and I've written the first, I'd say, three chapters of it because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to really hone in on the transition from book one to book two while everything was really fresh in my mind. But
Right.
I'm conducting the longer term research for the rest of this novel. And this novel picks up where that one left off, literally, and continues that journey of that clan Lamet as they went through and the experience that they went through. And then there's book three, which will happen after that. And so book two looks to me to be the same type of level of action as far as pace and different things that occur. It's going to be different. It's not the same story, told a different way. It's a continuation. So, things change in the novel, and circumstances change, and the challenges change. It's not just the same challenge. So it's exciting, and it will be as engaging as the first one, and so I'm excited to be writing it as well.
Do you see it going through generational saga, or are you staying with the same character?
Yes, it will be a generational jump there. I have it as a trilogy right now. I think that's what it will stay as, but there will be
Another trilogy?
yes, there who to be determined
Yeah.
exactly how this goes. But I have a goal, of course, to finish this story, and that
Mhm.
will determine what happens here, with what we're just talking about. But I also, as I kind of alluded to, I'm very much interested in writing this similar type story, but from a different country's perspective, you
Mhm.
know, and tell that story, say of Germany, and figure out the time period that they came over in abundance. Because I live in Texas. There's a lot of German settlements in Texas that occurred in the 1800s.
Okay.
Where, Germans came over to Texas in pursuit of opportunity, and there were some real struggles there as well. And same thing with the Polish community and the Czech
Mhm.
community. I mean, there's a lot of different communities here, but there's even more across the whole country, right? I mean, Italians, you
Right.
name it, Irish. I mean, there's all kinds of countries out there that had a large amount of people come over here at some time. And so my thought might be to write from each one of those perspectives the same kind of story.
Okay. Are you your family history? Are you from the Lamont clan?
I am, yes. My name is Ben Leman, is how you say Leman, and Lamont, Lamont, is the clan in my novel. And so my fifth great grandfather was James Lamont, and he spelled it Lemant. He was
Oh, okay.
born in Ireland, And as part of this story, some of the Leman families had to move away out of Scotland, and my, obviously one of my branches, came from that. And so they often changed their name back then, and he ended up
Right. Hmm.
dropped the T, changed the spelling, dropped the T, and that's how we ended up with Leman. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. My grandfather, he's passed now, but he got very into the family tree when my daughter was born, and this was before ancestry.com. And he actually went over there and discovered that my grandmother's family was Crawford clan. And so he came back with this plaid and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
Highlanders.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
But
go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was just going to say it's exciting sometimes to realize that you have ancestors who, like you said, they had to be so brave to go to a whole other land they've never seen before. It wasn't like there was TV or internet. They wouldn't know what they're going to, I just can't even imagine that. Being so sure that this is the right thing for you and sailing off on the horizon.
Absolutely. That's what really got me focused on that question. Like, what was it that made them come over here? I mean, yeah, you're talking about major decision here. And it's for us today, it's like maybe saying, hey, let's go live on the moon, no
Right.
infrastructure, no economy, no
Mm-hmm.
anything to get going with. So it was a major leap at the time. And that's what got me digging. And you're right, they were brave. And it wasn't just the men, it was the women too, both.
Mm-hmm.
I know at the time period, men are focused in battles because at the time it was a very physical world, I mean, it was battles ruled the day. The strongest person, carried the hour on the battlefield. But the women played very important roles in forming the
Yeah, because they
opinion.
had to keep everything going
Yeah,
while
keep
those guys are
everything
over there flying their swords around
right,
and
right.
be sure the house didn't burn down.
Yeah, yeah. And at the same time, the women, they understood that the family could only survive if it joined together with other families, and that's what the clan was, right? That was a community. So you had to be part of that group, and you had to support it in order for yourself to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so their roles of, yeah, keeping things together while the men were out there fighting and defending themselves, but also at this particular time period, they played a significant role in, hey, well, let's step back a minute. Maybe there's a better way to live here. Maybe
Right.
life's not just about battles and
Right.
trying to breathe. Maybe we can get more out of life, and let's consider going across the ocean here. And so in my book, in my novel, I tried to reveal some of the very important leadership roles that women played with their bravery, their courage, and their intellect. I highlight those and I bring them into the forefront of the discussion of my novel.
Oh, I love that. When you are planning out, what's happening next with the next book, are you foreseeing that it will be out like next year, or what's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, so the research takes a long time because so much of my book is based on actual events and actual history. Many of the characters were people that actually existed, so researching them as well. It's not the kind of book you pump out every year, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
So I'm thinking it will be in about a year and a half to 2 years. The next
Okay.
sequel will be out.
All right.
That's my plan, and so that's what I think.
Okay. And are you doing any events where people can go meet you and get a book, or are you doing online giveaways? Is there anything people should look out for?
Yes, if you so yes, I do, and my website has the social media
Mm-hmm.
links that the anybody that's interested can go click on and follow and stay in touch with where those events will be. We'll be posting them on social media as well as my website. And then there's a newsletter, of course, they can subscribe to as well and get the emails. But yes, I will be doing in-person events. I'll be signing books, and then also trying to do, an all above the approach to publicizing my book. I have a publicist that's helping me get the word out, and a social media marketing manager role as well. So I'm going to push pretty heavy. I think the reviews so far have been absolutely tremendous. All 5 stars out of 5 or 10 out of 10. So very excited about that, and I hope this book can go far. And I just have to get it out there, and I think people will enjoy it.
The timing, since the last season of Outlander is on right now, the timing's really good. And that one is dealing with Scottish people fighting in the Revolutionary War. So, your timing's good, I would think. People hungry for more. So, anyway, I hope that it goes very well for you and everyone. It comes out next week, so go pre-order it now, Between the Times. And when someone's excited, is the best way to contact you through social media or your website, or how do they get in touch?
Yeah, so I have an email link on my website. I have social media as well. Either one of those is probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Yeah, and I always love to remind people that it's so important to reach out and let an author know when you stayed up too late reading a book, because sometimes you can be the reason that we write the next chapter.
Sure.
So definitely reach out, and be sure that you are watching for Between the Times by Ben Leman. And thanks so much for being here today. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you, Lisa. I enjoyed it tremendously. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck. I love debut authors. Everyone, go try it. Go get the book.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.